few years of this coaching thing weren't the most successful for me personally. I know some of you guys like hop into this thing and like have success and it's all forward from the get-go. That was not quite the case for me, unfortunately. So the day I signed up, about a week later, I signed up my first coach, my mom. And so that was like, I kind of got to Emerald. I think I signed up my sister and kind of was like helping pay for her to get her supplements, just to get her 50 PV, to get her active so I could get to Emerald. And honestly, I didn't do much else with the business for the next 18 months. So there's something that we always talk about, that everybody has these two dates: the day you sign up. So my start date was back in 2008. I'm getting old now, but I signed up in 2008 as a coach. I signed up my mom that first week and literally didn't do anything with the business for 18 months. But 18 months into this coaching thing, I got invited to go to my first live event. How many of you guys have been to a live event? That was such a game changer for my mindset. Getting to a live event and getting to be around other coaches that had serious success in this business and get to hear from them. Also just get to chat with them and talk with them. We went out to like a bar afterwards and just like had a couple drinks and got to chat with them. So that was like about a year and a half into the business where I was like, okay, maybe this is like something that is a lot bigger of an opportunity than I'm giving it credit for. And then that sparked me to want to go to my first summit. So about, I'd say like 2 years into the business, I went to my first summit. How many of you guys have been to a summit? When I left that summit, like I don't think I've ever been, to that point in my life, I had never been on such fire. I'd never felt so much fire and passion and energy. Like when I was at the airport waiting to get on my flight, I literally called everybody that I could think of that popped in my head. And I had so much fire and passion for it that they could like feel it. And that's when I started to get some people that really wanted to do this. So that's a clue. Like there's something you're going to hear a lot of people say is success leaves clues. One thing that I know is that when I go to live events, the energy and the fire that I get from that is contagious. So I've just always, ever since then, tried to make the events a non-negotiable. But I got to share, like the next year, I skipped Summit. So 2 years into the business, I went to Summit. 3 years in, that next Summit, I didn't go. Every time I get on a call like this, I feel fire. I come away from calls like this with I feel like each of us individually has our own little fire, right? And when we show up to a call like this, we bring the fire to this call and we all collectively get a little bit of each other's fire. And then we leave the call with more fire than we had before. Does that make sense? When I went to Summit, it was like a call like this, but like times 10. It was like straight gasoline on my fire. And then I started to get complacent. I stopped getting on team calls. I stopped going to, I didn't go to Summit the next year. And because I wasn't showing up to these events to rekindle my fire started to get a little bit smaller and smaller. I went to the following event. This is now I've been a coach for 4 years. I went to Summit. I finally got sick and tired of going up and down with how excited I was for this business, because my energy and how contagious I was having an effect on the people that I was bringing into the business. So me taking breaks on this business and taking breaks on my own workouts, on my own personal development, taking breaks on how I was showing up on social media was not only cheating me, but it was cheating the people that I had introduced the business to, because they weren't feeling any fire. I wasn't bringing the fire, so they weren't able to feel anything either. And then we didn't have a team or a team call for them to plug into if I wasn't showing up at the time. When I left that summit, I got invited to what was kind of like similar to the New Leadership Conference that we have now. How many of you guys have heard of the New Leadership Conference? So when you get to 1-star diamond, you get to invited to this New Leadership Conference in LA at Beachbody headquarters. So I had been a coach for about 4 years and hadn't really done much with the business. But when I got invited to that, my first leadership, it was like kind of my like new leadership. That's when I started to get surrounded by some people where I finally was like, I kind of drew a line in the sand and I was like, I'm so tired of going up and down on this thing, of being half in or being all in and then kind of being all out. I'm sick and tired of gaining all this momentum and having all these people that are interested and excited. And then I need to take a break and then they fall off. Meanwhile, I'm seeing all these other people stay consistent, continue to show up to these calls weekly, and they continue to have this consistent fire. And I'm sitting back watching. And, you know, I was happy for them because these are some of the coaches that I had met at my first live event 2 years prior. And I was, you know, hadn't really done much in my business, and I'm now watching them have 6-figure incomes. So I was excited for them, but I was really pissed at myself. And I brought my mom as my guest to that first leadership event that I got invited to. And I remember that was 4 years into the business where we finally were like, all right, we're serious about this. We're not taking any breaks. Like, this is what we're done with that. So again, like, everybody has 2 dates. The date that you sign up, which for me was 4 years prior to the second date, which is the date that you're deciding that I'm done taking breaks. I'm going to be consistent from here on out. I'm done letting my fire dwindle and let my consistency dwindle. For me, those 2 dates were 4 years apart. The first 4 years of that inconsistency were what they were. But the next 4 years after that were explosive growth in the team, in the influence we had, the impact we had, the income we were creating, the type of freedom we had. That right after that new leadership, some of the things we did were like create our first coach basics. And then we started doing 21-day challenges where we, every first Monday of the month, started a new 21-day challenge, very similar to the body blocks. And that's when our business started to explode those next 2, 3, 4 years compared to those first 4. So I just want to let you know, like, that if you see these coaches that are super successful and are in these high levels on the road to legacy, and you see them on stage and they have all these accolades, they all had 2 start dates too. The question is, what's the gap between those 2 start dates? Hopefully, like, you guys have already had that second start date. And if you haven't, like, maybe today is that day. What better day than first of the month, May 1st, 2023, is the day that you finally say, I'm sick and tired of going up and down with this thing. I'm sick and tired of not making these team calls a priority. I'm sick and tired of not making the events a priority. I'm sick and tired of not making my workouts a priority. I'm sick and tired of not being consistent with my personal development. Because you know, when you're consistent with those things, when you're consistent with your own routine of your workouts, your nutrition, your personal development, and you're consistently surrounding yourself with other people that are doing those things, you know, you feel like the badass version of yourself, the true version of yourself, not that version of yourself that makes excuses and is unmotivated and doesn't have that fire. You know, you feel so much better when you're doing those things consistently. And I knew that for 4 years, deep down, like, always in the back burner, I knew that I felt way better when I was working out consistently, doing my personal development, eating right, and showing up and surrounding myself with people like you consistently. I knew I felt better. I just wasn't doing it. And I just regretted that. I finally got to the point where I was like, all right, enough's enough. So the question I always have for like new coaches is, why do some coaches get to that point where they just become consistent with this thing? And why are the other coaches just, they can't quite get their footing with the consistency? And so for me, that's kind of the big picture mindset. So anytime someone comes to me and asks like, what's the secret to the business? How do you have the biggest impact? How do you have the most influence? How do you create a six-figure income with the business? I always tell them it's going to come down to one thing: developing 2 or 3 great leaders, 2 or 3 people that want to be as consistent as you are with these, 2 or 3 people that know they feel like a much better version of themselves when they're consistent with their workouts, with their PD, with their nutrition, with surrounding themselves with people on the call like this. That's the big picture. I was lucky enough that when I came into this business, that's what my mentors told me. You know, like my year 3, year 4, I started getting surrounded by coaches that they constantly were saying that same thing over and over and over. This is before Success Club was even invented. The only thing we talked about was staying consistent with this long enough to find your 2 or 3 ride or dies, 2 or 3 homies, your 2 or 3 that understand the potential of this thing as much as you. 2 or 3 people that want to have as big of an impact as you. 2 or 3 people that want to grow an income as big as you do. 2 or 3 people that you want to go on vacations with. Those 2 or 3. That's the big picture. But there's a catch, right? Those 2 or 3 rock stars that you want to go on trips with, that are going to see the big picture, that are going to be all in with this thing long term, are typically people that are probably doing pretty well with whatever else they're doing in life right now. They're not typically people that just jump into one thing and then probably jump into the next. They're usually people that sit back and watch. And they're probably watching you already right now. And they're asking themselves 2 things. 1, is this a real business opportunity? And 2, is this person actually serious about it? And the only way that you're going to be able to allow them to feel 100% yes to those 2 things is by you showing up consistently for 6 months or a year or 2. If you are showing up all in and then you fall off, all you're doing is proving to those people that you're not serious about this. And I'm not saying that as like I'm judging you. I'm saying that like I know, because I did that myself for 4 years. All I did for my first 4 years of this business was prove to people that I was not serious about it. The next year, I proved to people for 12 months straight that I was dead serious about it, and they were either going to come with me or they were going to get left behind. That was the drawing the line in the sand. You guys feel the difference? You guys can feel the difference between someone who's like, my first few years in the business, I was kind of like desperate for people to do it. I was like, oh man, it'd be so great if somebody did this and like built this business for me. And maybe I'll try a little bit here and there and see what happens, and treat this thing like a lottery ticket, right? Most coaches come into this business and they treat it like a lottery ticket. They're like, I'm going to find those 2 or 3 leaders. I'm going to scratch off a couple spots. I'm going to ask a couple people, and maybe one of them is going to be my lottery ticket that crushes this business for me. So they ask their mom and their dad, or their best friend and this person over here, and those people don't say no or aren't interested, and they go, oh, I gave it a shot. It worked. It didn't work for me. But they didn't understand that the only way you've proved to people that this is a real business and that you are truly serious about it is by showing up consistently for a year. And for the really great leaders you want on your team, you're going to have to show up consistently for 2 years. And then when they do show up and they do finally say yes, you have to continue to stay consistent to show them that this thing is still real. So it's more like a 12 to 24 month thing of straight consistency before you see the real payoff. Versus what most coaches do, which is get into it for a little bit, get a couple people on board, and then fall off, take breaks, and then those people fall off too. How many of you guys are visual learners? I'm like me, I'm a visual learner. People can talk, but for me, I always learn the best when I hear visual examples. So when I was a kid, my grandma used to always take me to the mall for my birthday in the winter. And I would always get the new Michael Jordan, the new Air Jordan sneakers. Carousel Mall, upstate New York, represent Syracuse, New York. And I would, for whatever reason, I guess I was a bit of a troublemaker. I didn't always follow the rules. That's just, sometimes like you don't want to follow, you want to like that. I think that was what drew me to this, right? Like I wanted to do something that was outside of the box. I wanted to push the envelope. I didn't want to sit in a cubicle the rest of my life. But when I would see that escalator, for whatever reason, I wanted to run up the down escalator. And you guys some of you have heard this, right? So to me, that was such a great example of like what this business is like. How many of you guys have actually tried to do that? Have tried to run up the down escalator? Anybody try to do this? Anyone have kids that have tried to do this? A couple people. So what happens when you get on the down escalator, but you're trying to run up it? You start running, right? And in the beginning, it's fun. Like everything, when you first start, it's always fun. Even a new job is like fun at first. When you start this business, it's like fun at first. But there comes a point in everything where after a while, like you start to get tired and you're like, oh, man, like I feel like I've been running for a while and like I'm not moving as fast as I want up this escalator, right? Because you're running uphill against the traffic. Just like we said in this business, when you're showing up and you're inviting people to do this with you, they need to watch you for longer than you would like. And you're going to plant seeds and they're going to say no. But you'll start to understand and you start to teach your coaches, your partners, that no's are actually a good thing. Because every time you plant a seed like that, that person tells you no, they're going to watch you a little closer now. And they might not like anything you post. They might not comment on anything you post, but I found out over the years that they're always watching. And they're watching to see, are you going to stay consistent with this? Is this a real thing? And are you serious about it? So it's going to feel like at times that you're running up and down escalator and feels like you're running, but your business might not be moving as fast as you want. And that's the catch. That's the catch of the business is you might be moving and running and doing your things and planting seeds and inviting and all that and sharing on social media, but your business might not be growing as fast as you want. You might not be getting the yeses as fast as you want. You might not be getting your coaches on board as fast as you want. Your coaches might not be advancing as fast as you want, but they need to watch you to understand that this thing is a real opportunity. And they need to understand that you're going to do this with or without them. They have to understand that they're either going to get left behind or they can come with you, but you're going with or without them. You want them to come with you, obviously, because they're your friends and you care about them and you want them to run with you, but they just aren't, they might not be ready yet. And if you quit, you're cheating them too. I found that out the hard way. But once I started to understand that escalator mindset, and this is sometimes kind of talking in hashtags, like hashtag escalator mindset is something that is just kind of ingrained in my mind. I understand, like, and it's something I try to ingrain in my new coaches and veteran coaches, that they kind of understand that too. That yes, you're going to feel like you're on this escalator, running up the down escalator at times, but that's just part of it. The cool thing is that while we're on the escalator, we're doing really cool things for ourselves. You know, we're doing mindset stuff. We're doing our workouts. We're eating right. We're surrounding ourselves with people like this. We're constantly fueling ourselves. And yeah, maybe our business isn't growing as fast as we'd like, but that's the whole escalator thing. The cool, like, as we're running, it might not be feeling like you're doing things. All those people are slowly watching, are slowly getting closer to that yes. They're slowly getting closer to that yes. So a no is a good thing. A no is you planting a seed. So why do some coaches stay on the escalator and some don't? And I found it's kind of two things. If they don't have one of these two things, they typically struggle to stay consistent on the escalator. The first is their why. And I like to call it like their why list, or even better, hashtag why fuel. If they don't have fuel in their tank, they're not going to show up and do the things each day. And I like to have my new coaches create like a why list so they can have little things all the way up to the big stuff. Like, I see people stressing over $20 sometimes. I used to stress over $20. I used to stress over $10. As I started growing in this business, as my income started growing in this business, stopped stressing about little things that were $10. If I wanted to get the steak instead of the burger, I stopped stressing about those things. If something broke on my car that needed to be fixed, cell phone bills. If I went to the mall and there was like something that I wanted to like some new sneakers, or if I was out with friends and one of my friends bought a round of drinks, I used to like kind of feel like a little bit of a panic, like, oh man, my buddy just bought a round of drinks. Like, I'm going to have to buy a round of drinks. Like, I wasn't making a lot of money, at the time. So for me, like when I'm working with my new coaches, I want to help them create that why list, little stuff like things that are going to help them create that peace of mind. And then slowly that list grows to like something bigger, like what would $20, like think about what would an extra $50 a week mean to you or to some of your coaches? What would an extra $100 a week mean to you? What would an extra $200, like, what would that feel like? Just peace of mind wise. An extra, I still remember like the first week I made, $250 in a week with Beachbody. I was like, it was just mind boggling. And I remember like going out for drinks with friends and like bought 2 rounds of drinks. I was like, and it felt nice to be able to just do that without having to think about it. It was just, again, like a little bit more level of freedom. Then I remember my first week at 500. So I'm always working with my coaches on what's their why. I think a lot of coaches like don't even think about their why. For me, it was like something that was always fueling me. I was always thinking about it, but I think a lot of coaches, we don't even allow ourselves to dream or to think about things like that because we're afraid we're not going to achieve it. We're afraid to fail. So we don't even allow ourselves to think of that big picture or even the little stuff like being able to afford a softer toilet paper, like little things like that. If you can get your coaches to just start of little things like that, just to get them out, like in the habit of starting to like dream a little bigger, think a little bit bigger, they start to like strengthen that muscle. Because most coaches, when you ask them what their why is, they say something that sounds pretty cool, but then they never think about it again. Whereas the coaches that are showing up consistently on these calls and constantly refueling their fire, and they're constantly showing up for themselves, their why is on their mind I couldn't get my why off my mind. Even when I wanted to go to bed at night, I couldn't even fall asleep because my why was stuck in my head playing over and over again. And I think most coaches are the opposite. They're afraid to even think about that kind of thing. So that's, of the two things, the why and the belief, I think we got to start with that and help our coaches start to dream a little bigger, think a little bigger, right? The second part is the belief. The way I try to help my coaches strengthen their belief is I reverse engineer the business. So the big picture is develop 2 or 3 leaders, right? Simple, right? Not easy, but that's the big picture. Those 2 or 3 ride or dies, those 2 or 3 true leaders that you want to go on vacation with, that are all in with you. Where are you going to find those 2 or 3 leaders? They're typically going to be people that are customers first. Even, when I have people that reach out to me about the business opportunity, or if I lead with the business opportunity, we're talking about that. I always tell those people the best way for me to help set you up for success in the business is to give you an amazing experience as a customer, even for just 3 weeks. Don't think about the business right now. Just let me give you an amazing experience as a customer for 3 weeks. Those people, after 10 days, like, they're going to know if the business opportunity is a right fit for them or not. If they get 10 days into this thing and they're loving it, like, yeah, okay, the coaching opportunity is what is going to be a good fit for them. But I never let somebody sign up as a coach until I at least give them that 3-week experience as a customer. So big picture, 2 to 3 great leaders. Again, they don't have to be personally sponsored coaches. Like, they can be your coaches who sign up people and you can work with them, and so on and so forth. But you need those 2 or 3 leaders. They're going to be people that love the products, that love personal development, that want to be a part of a group of people like this, that want to go on, like, be at events like this. And how are you going to get those people as a client? How are you going to get them into your challenge groups? So we know the big picture of the 2 to 3 leaders. We know they're going to come from our challenge groups as clients, but how do you get those people into your challenge groups? How do you get them to say yes to that? By being on the escalator. By being consistent with those vital behaviors for an extended period of time, for 6 months, for 12 months. So now when you're telling yourself and you're telling your coaches what the vital behaviors are, what the little daily activities we need to be doing are, they're not just doing those things because there's some things that somebody told them they need to do. They see exactly how that leads to them staying on the escalator, to more people saying yes, to getting some people in their challenge groups, for some of those people to fall in love with the products, and for 2 or 3 of those people to become the rock star leaders. That's the big picture. Does that make sense? I think a lot of times we get caught up in the vital behaviors as like, oh, these are just little things I need to be doing. And we miss sight of how they tie back to the big picture goals. Because once you develop those 2 or 3 leaders in your downline, whether they're personally sponsored or not, doesn't really matter. You're gonna have so much more of an impact than you ever could on your own. And there's always a direct correlation between the impact that you're creating through your ripple effect and what you earn as a coach. So when you help develop those 2 or 3 leaders in your downline, personally sponsored or not, that ripple effect, the impact you have goes way up, and your income goes way up. And I think when our coaches start to see that those vital behaviors and staying on the escalator leads to eventually those 2 or 3 rock star leaders, they show up more consistent. If a coach is inconsistent, it's one of those 2 things is off. Either their why isn't strong enough or their belief isn't strong enough. So those are the 2 things I always work on with coaches, because the daily activities that we need to do as coaches, I could teach that to, I think my nephew, who's in eighth, I think he's in seventh grade now. Like I could teach it to him. He'd be able to do these things as a seventh grader, you know, like how to send invites, how to connect with people, how to share what you're doing, how to hit play and follow a workout, how to follow, you know, how to do the mindset videos. But it's the consistency piece that I think people are missing. And when they see the big picture, they're willing to tie it back and are willing to stay on the escalator. I think we're about to run out of time, but that's 80% of the battle is the mindset piece. That why, that belief, that big picture mindset, the escalator mindset. The next call I do, I'll dive into like the skills. Those are really the only two things I ever teach my coaches.